So the question I've been asked the most recently is, when is the patch coming out? And we finally have some news about that. The patch notes are coming out on Friday in 1 day, September 9th, and the actual patch itself will either come out that same day, a couple hours later, or probably next Tuesday when they normally come out with patches. So the first card that needs to be nerfed is Magister Dawngrasp, and the problem with this card is it basically becomes like the win condition for almost every single mage deck, and its hero power scales up way too quickly. I don't care if you're going skeleton mage, normal hero power mage, or big spell mage, like at least 5 out of 10 games, you're winning the game with Magister, which is a problem, and it feels bad to lose to your hero power. The two main ways you can nerf this card are by increasing the mana cost to 8, which I think is lazy and would not address the problem. The other way is to make the honorable kill go from +2 damage to +1 damage. So that way, after killing just 4 minions, it doesn't become 2 mana Pyroblast, it becomes a 2 mana Fireball. It goes from 10 damage to 6 damage with this nerf, which is still a lot, but it's significantly easier to deal with, especially if you're like a late game control deck that needs a little bit more time. So the next card that needs to be nerfed surprises absolutely nobody, and that is Wildheart Guff. There are 3 main ways you could nerf this card. 1, basically the mana cost, making it 6 mana, which, like Magister Dawngrasp, does not really address the problem, but it does address the problem a little bit more with Guff than it does Mage, because this one playing at turn 5 increases your tempo and ability to ramp up, so nerfing that by 1 would be at least a little bit more viable. The next one is nerfing the Battle Cry, either making your maximum mana 15, which I think would hurt Guff a little bit too much, or making the gain a mana crystal and draw a card a choose 1 effect, which would also kind of fit with Druid, but that would change the wording too much, I think, and be too complicated. So the most likely nerf is going to be to the hero power. 2 mana, choose 1, draw a card, or gain an empty mana crystal. As of right now, this hero power is essentially 1 mana to gain a mana crystal for next turn. Making you gain an empty mana crystal would still be a significantly better wild growth that you can do every single turn, and we compare this to basically every other new hero power except for maybe mages. It's just way too powerful. The next card that should be nerfed is Edwin, and I just want to say I don't know if this is like a preview to what the nerf is going to be, or if Blizzard just never changed it on their website to begin with, but he's already a 4 mana 4/4 on their website, so I'm pretty sure what's going to happen is they are just going to revert the change to Edwin. They basically said day 1, oopsie poopsie, that was my bad. We will probably revert it next patch. So I think that this is in line with what they should do, making it 1 mana more. I think, especially in a rogue deck, a 1 mana nerf would hit a class like this a lot more than it would hit maybe Druid and Mage. It just, right now, Edwin creates a lot of non-games. You're basically able to play him turn 3, Shadow Step him, and then again turn 4, and you can create a ton of big stealth minions. You can sometimes get Edwin to be a 13/13 or something by turn 4, which most decks just can't deal with at that point in the game. So slowing him down by a turn or 2 helps aggro decks maybe close out the game a little bit faster, and helps control decks maybe get that removal tool because they have 1 more turn to draw it. The next card that should be nerfed is Theotar, and I'm not 100% sure how I feel about this because I think he is a necessary evil. Ultimately, there are a lot of other toxic, non-interactive cards and win cons in Hearthstone that Theotar allows you to actually play around. However, he feels probably like one of the worst to play against because nobody wants to lose their win conditions. So there are a couple of ways you could nerf this card. 1, discover a card in your opponent's hand, but then give your opponent a random card from your hand. So that way you could potentially lose something good and you don't get to just give them a card. The thing that I think they should do though, because they don't have to change the whole mechanics of the card or the wording, is increase the mana cost. This card, for what it does, should take up most of your turn to do and feel bad to play it. A 4 mana 3/3 doesn't feel that bad to play, unlike, let's say, a Mutanus, which is a 7 mana 4/4 that if it misses or eats a small minion, basically wastes your entire turn. Theotar is significantly less. You don't snipe something good. Okay, I'll just play something else with my other 6 mana if you played it late game, which I don't think is healthy. I think this card should be punishing to the person who plays it because of how strong its effect is. The next card that should probably be nerfed is Kaleth, and I'm saying this because if you think of the big 3 in the combo, Bran, Kaleth, Sire Dinathius, Kaleth is the one that will be most problematic long term, because if you are able to make minions or anything cost 0, people will find a way to abuse this, and as they print more cards, there will be more powerful cards, and it'll just become like a bigger problem as the game develops. Whereas Dinathius, if you don't double activate the hero power, isn't that big of a problem on its own, and Bran is just a cool card from the past that'll probably leave in the core set next year anyway, whereas Kaleth is here for at least another like year and a half. So overall, I think this is the card that's most likely and should probably get nerfed the most of those 3, even though they're all very powerful, and the nerf should just be every 3rd minion you play each turn costs 0, in parentheses excluding this card. So if you can play it turn 6 and protect it, it can still be very strong, but it's not able to just insta-combo off on turn 9. So the next card on this list is going to be Sire Dinathius, and this is sadly in the case where Kaleth does not get nerfed. I don't think both will get nerfed, I only think one of these 2 will, and the main ways you can nerf this card is 1, Battle Cry, deals 0 damage, or Infuse becomes 2 to Infuse. And honestly, I like reducing the base damage to 0 more, because if you nerf the scaling of this card, it becomes way worse very quickly. You need like 20 minions to die to do 15 damage, which just feels really bad. And as you go later on in the game, let's say 30, 40 minions die, next thing you know, you're only doing like 25 damage, which feels really, really bad. But if you reduce the base damage of this to 0, it does still slow down the ability of this card to OTK the opponent with Bran. There have been several times I've been able to do 21, 22, 23 damage with Dinathius and just barely kill my opponent over the top. If I lost 5 damage from the beginning, I would have to play at least a couple more cards and slow down the combo by 1 to 2 turns before I could do that, and buying my opponents that 1 or 2 extra turns I think would make this card a lot more balanced. So the next card on this list of things to nerf is Nightclub Sanctum, which isn't an outwardly broken game-winning card, but is extremely strong, and you can just see that in the play rate. It is played 1 million times more than the second most played card. It has more plays than the second and third most played cards combined. And it's not even the most popular class in the game right now. I think Druid is, which just goes to show you how strong this card is. I think that the main nerf to this card would probably just be nerfing it to 2 durability, so you can't just endlessly lock down your opponent. As it is right now, it's freeze 3 minions, get a 6/6 minion, and deal 6 damage randomly split amongst enemies. That can also scale up your late game win condition of Kaleth, which I think basically just does too much for 3 mana. So this next card is actually one that is safe from nerfs. They have confirmed that Prince Renethal is not going to be nerfed. Blizzard likes the position that is in. They think that it is a healthy card, and I kind of agree with them. I mean, even though it's played in more than 50% of decks, the 40 HP allows for late game decks to actually be able to play the game, and aggro decks still have enough damage to kill the opponent. The only class that I thought Prince Renethal was a problem in was Druid, because they have so much late game ability to like gain armor and life and whatnot that it just felt toxic. But if they end up nerfing Druid, I don't think Prince Renethal was the actual main problem, so he's safe. They do like the ability of Prince Renethal to promote a wider variety of decks to be played, and I like him as well. So the next card on this list is going to be Wild Pawn Null. And at this point in the video, we're becoming a little bit more speculative, but I think it's almost as problematic as Edwin himself, because it basically takes the biggest weakness of Rogue, which is being run down early, and says, yeah, actually, you don't have that weakness anymore. We're just going to give you a free 3/5 rush minion on turn 3 if you've played like Shroud of Concealment or traded away like 1 card, and you're not going to get overrun anymore. So overall, I think that this card should be nerfed in one of 2 ways. 1, increase the cost by 1, so that way it doesn't come out for free as quickly. Or 2, decrease the stats so it doesn't get to trade into 2 minions. Or you can't get a value trade, then Shadow Step it, play it again, and kill off 3 minions. If you make this like a 5 mana 3/3, so it kills off 1 minion and probably dies, I think that would be a lot healthier, so it doesn't get to just continue the board presence, which I think is one of the more problematic problems of this card. This next card is one that I'm a little bit conflicted about. They teased nerfing Scale of Onyxia in one of their Twitter posts. It's a card that they were looking into, but I also think if you nerf this card, especially too much, Druid would just lose to aggro almost 100% of the time. It's your, I was going to say first line of defense, but really it's your only line of defense against a board-based aggro deck. But honestly, in its current state, I do also think it's a little bit too strong. So there are 2 main ways they can nerf this. If they nerf it to 8 mana, Druid dies. If they nerf it to where you fill your board with 6 whelps instead of 7, it would, I think, be a little bit better. There are a couple of niche situations where an aggro deck might have 1 extra minion live because they summon 1 less whelp. It also hurts some of the infused cards like Dinathius, so that way you're not able to get as much damage out of a Scale of Onyxia. And honestly, Scale of Onyxia, when you play Onyxia herself, she summons 6 whelps, so it would kind of be good flavor-wise as well. But yeah, if they nerf the mana, this card, the deck dies. And now I'm going to talk about 2 cards that I think more people should be talking about, and that is Defend the Dwarven District. Right now, Hunter has the highest win rate in the game by an entire %, and yet when people are talking about the most frustrating cards and things that need to be nerfed, nobody ever says Hunter. And then if you also look at the win rates of cards in the meta, like, it's got 2 decks in the top 4. Like, it is an extremely good class. And honestly, the nerf to this card should just be, the hero power should be a little bit harder to complete. Instead of being 2/2/2, it should be like 2/3/2 or 3/2/2 or something along those lines. Basically slow down their quest by about a turn. They also get 1 less spell. So that's about probably 2 to 4 less damage that you're going to end up taking in the late game because they lose a reset. And I think that that would be a good enough nerf to this card, at least in the short term. Maybe make it like 3/3/2, although that would probably be too big of a nerf considering Hunter has very little draw. So honestly, nerfing this card to become a 3/2/2 quest line would probably be the best case scenario for this. And last but not least, we are talking about the Harpoon Gun. You dredge, the beast cost reduces by 3. I think it should just go back to 2. It was already a very powerful card, but by making it 3, if you're able to get a Mountain Bear off of this or Hydrolodon and play immediately after on turn 4, the game kind of just ends there. Most decks cannot deal with the 5/6 turn 4 that has Taunt that can also summon 2 more 2/4 minions. I mean, that's essentially, what is that, 14 stats for 4 mana. Kind of insane. And again, it's still a 3/2 weapon for 3 mana, so it's got Fiery War Axe stats, and you'd be able to dredge 2 cards and potentially reduce their mana cost. It would still be a very powerful card, it just wouldn't be as oppressive. So, now we're going to talk about the buffs, and the 3 classes that people talk about buffing the most are Demon Hunter, Warrior, and Paladin. Demon Hunter is doing just fine right now. People are starting to figure out how to play the class, and especially when these top decks get nerfed, I think this class will be fine. That brings us to Warrior and Paladin, which I think are fundamentally flawed classes that need external help to be good. Like, they need new cards to expand on their existing synergies to be good. Paladin does have a new deck, extra large Dragon Paladin, that I actually apparently created, although I didn't really. Point is, they have a new deck out there that is actually seeing play and having a pretty solid win rate. So we might see Paladin's win rate increase, which just goes to show you that the meta isn't quite figured out yet. Other than that, all the other archetypes of Paladin are bad, and unless they get more Dude Paladin stuff, or they have more powerful, like, pure cards, like if you have no neutrals, get a True Silver Champion, like the 4/2 for 3 mana that was a while back. That would potentially bring pure Paladin into the meta. But until they get external cards, it's not going to be good. Then you have Warrior, which is just a complete and total, like, dumpster fire. You got an aggro deck with no draw, no way of doing extra direct damage. You just go pedal to the metal turn 1, and if your board gets wiped a single time, you lose. And then you have a control deck that has no late game win condition and no draw. So again, unless they get external stuff to give them a late game win condition in control, or give them a little bit of draw and a more aggressive deck so they don't just instantly run out of steam, Warrior is not playable. It's that simple. I would say maybe a card for Warrior that would make it stronger, at least a control version, is maybe a 2 or 3 mana card that draws you a card for every 5 armor you have, which you might think is a ton, but even if you have 30 armor, it's only 6 cards, which is still significantly worse than Impending Catastrophe and Warlock. But it would give Warrior, like, Frozen Buckler, this new card, draw 2 cards and gain some armor. I just think that they need something to draw cards and get to their win conditions. Because, I mean, if you compare them to Ramp Druid, any mage deck with Magister, Control Shaman, Control Warlock, and Quest Priest, it just can't keep up draw-wise or win condition-wise. So yeah, they need external help. I don't think buffs will do anything unless you buff stuff an insane amount. Like, okay, we'll make the Countess to 5 mana 7/7. Okay, cool, but I think that becomes a little bit too strong at that point. But it's really the only way I could see either of these classes being playable with buffs. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little preview of what is most likely to come. And of the 11 cards I think are going to get nerfed, ultimately I think maybe about 7 of them will. Like Magister 100%, Guff yes, Edwin yes, Theotar probably, either Kaleth or Sire Dinathius. Nightclub Sanctum is a pretty high probability. Scale of Onyxia they already teased, and they have to nerf something in Hunter, so probably 7 cards. And in terms of buffs, again, I don't think they will really do that much, but I would like to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.